Welcome everyone who is joining us. This is the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine webinar about stopping the genocide in Gaza and hopefully stopping the war, the wider war in the Middle East. Thank you all for joining. As you join, I would invite everybody to put your name and your organization in the chat if you can, and where you're signing in from. And we'll take a minute while everyone signs in. We've had more than 540 people register for this webinar today, so a great deal of support for this webinar. And we're very excited and happy that you decided to join us today for this important topic. My name is Rick Jones. I'm part of the Inter-American Institute for Peace and Reconciliation in Latin America. We're a relatively new organization with people who have been working across Latin America for the last 30 years on peace and reconciliation with justice, and now also part of the Global Solidarity Partnership for Peace in Palestine. So it's my pleasure to be here with you today. And I am standing in for Susan Smith from the Interfaith Reconciliation, the Center for Reconciliation, and she's out sick today, so we will keep her in our thoughts and prayers as we join this meeting. Before we get started, I would just like to thank David Swanson, who is with us, and I'm going to ask David, he's going to be putting up information about interpretation. We have Arabic and Spanish interpretation today, and so I'm going to ask David, there will be a short video that is running on your screen. Please take a look at that. It starts in Spanish, moves into Arabic and English with the instructions for all of you to connect to the language that you would like to listen to this in. David is, I want to thank David again from World Beyond War, which is hosting this conference. For all of those who are joining, this is the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine, Stop at the Genocide, and a call to action. We're going to be getting started in a few minutes, but I would like to welcome everyone who is joining and who has joined us. We're at about 146. We had over 540 people register for this event today, so we're very happy that you've decided to join us. This second conference is going to bring together peace builders and human rights advocates and experts from around the world, and especially from Gaza, to address what's happening in Gaza, the systemic oppression that Palestinians are facing by the Israeli occupation in the context of this larger regional war that is growing against Lebanon and increasingly against other countries in the region. This webinar is brought to you by the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine, a coalition of organizations around the world who are committed to defending rights and liberation of the Palestinian people and ending the occupation. Our movement is built on the principles of justice, human dignity, and respect for international law. The organizations that constitute the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine network include the Palestinian Youth Association for Leadership and Rights Activation, Services and Advice for Peace, Serapaz in Mexico, the World Social Forum, Pax Christi International, the International Peace Bureau, the Inter-American Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflicts, GPAC, the Latin American Platform for Human Rights, Peace, and Democracy, the International Council for Oscar Arnulfo Romero Christian Solidarity Service, World Beyond War, Weaponized Drone Ban Treaty Campaign, Peace Boat, Global Exchange, Justice and Peace Network in Latin America and the Caribbean, the Latin American Alliance for Disarmament and Social Justice, Peace and Justice Service in Mexico, and the International Fellowship for Reconciliation in the United States. Welcome, everybody. We're just about to get started here. David, let me know if Mr. Swarani has joined us.
I let in someone named Raji's iPad and made them a co-host, so
okay.
I hope so.
Excellent, thank you. We're just waiting for one of our speakers again. Again, my name is Rick Jones, and I'm part of the Inter-American Institute for, for Peace and Reconciliation in Latin America. I would like to introduce you Miguel Alvarez, who's going to give us a welcome and talk to us very briefly about how this initiative got started. Miguel is from Mexico, one of the founders of Serapaz, a civil society organization dedicated to peace and reconciliation. He was part of the National Commission for Mediation in 1994 in Mexico, which was presided by Bishop Samuel Ruiz and guided by liberation theology. Miguel is a mediator, a winner of National Human Rights Award in 2017 from Serapaz. He's a member of various networks around the world and has participated in over 17 peace actions in 17 different countries. So thank you, Miguel will speak to us in Spanish. So if you're ready with your translation, Miguel, thank you so much.
Gracias, Rick. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Este esfuerzo muy reciente tiene la diferencia de que nació del grito palestino por crearle condiciones a la esperanza. Hicimos una primera reunión apenas el 2 de septiembre, donde les escuchamos en una primera reunión de consulta con la presencia de varias redes globales y regionales y nacionales. Y de ahí si iniciamos este proceso que también tiene como claridad de que hay necesidad de una tarea en varias etapas, pero que la tarea inmediata necesaria es detener esta guerra. Y por eso esta reunión es particularmente importante porque se han venido madurando varias propuestas de acción que ahora vamos a escuchar, vamos a pulir y a madurar para entre todas y todos echarlas a andar y lograr ese peso que como sociedades civiles hace falta para empujar la voluntad de los órganos que pueden ser parte de esta tarea elemental que nos abre rutas a esa esperanza. Gracias y nos escuchamos con la unidad, con el respeto, con la solidaridad que ha marcado este esfuerzo, que esperamos responda a este sueño de esperanza de las hermanas y hermanos palestinos. Gracias.
Thank you, Miguel, for that introduction to this event and this movement. We're now going to move to our first item on today's agenda, which is a call to action. I'm going to introduce to you, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kathy Kelly, who is our first speaker from
pressure. We were told that these missions to the UN face obstacles. The European one said, well, we're bound by constraints of consensus with the European Union. All of the missions told us that they were intimidated by possibilities of repercussions coming from the United States. And so we are very, very conscious of the need to build this grassroots pressure and to do so in rising numbers. So in that earnest desire, we're asking each one of you not only to send the letter, which you can technologically do on this call, send the letter to each of the permanent missions to the United Nations, but also recruit 100 more people. We can do this. Get 100 more people to join you in taking this action. I want to thank David Swanson of World Beyond War for being like a shepherd to create the technology and develop it and expand it so that these letters can be sent in almost any language to each of the permanent missions to the UN. And I want to acknowledge this is a first step. It's certainly not the only step. It's not the last step. But let's make sure we develop the heft so that we can approach the United Nations leadership and credibly say we represent many thousands of people clamoring for the UN to take action in fulfillment of international law and also in fulfillment of the United Nations mandate to eradicate the scourge of warfare for future generations. So I'd like to turn the microphone over to David Swanson and ask David to take us through this letter, which we hope will soon be circulating from places all around the globe. And very special thanks to the many people who've joined us this morning, or afternoon, or evening.
Thank you, Kathy. I have put into the chat just this instant and a couple of previous times, and we'll keep doing so, a link to a webpage. And I'm going to go there now, sharing screen, but I will ask each of you to not bother watching my screen, but to actually go there now if you're able to, if you have access to a web browser. If not, save it and do it later. But we're going to try to actually go there now, all of us, and do this thing. So first, let me say thank you to Kathy Kelly, and second, her remarks, thanking in particular Palestinians who are part of this, as well as those who are from countries around the world that are not Israel's top supplier of weapons, as the United States is. And thank you, Kathy. I will take credit for having created the internet and so forth. Not sure how deservingly, but here is the webpage, the link to which is in the chat. If you are watching this later on video, you can get there at WorldBeyondWar.org and click a prominent link. And when you get here, you'll see small blue text in the top right corner with funny little symbols and the words translate to any language. And if you click that, you can choose a language and translate. And you will then see this headline, maybe not this graphic, but all of this text below in the language of your choice. We hope this is helpful for people's understanding of what's going on here. And as is noted and linked to here, we generated over 500,000 emails to a dozen or so governments demanding that they take the case to the International Court of Justice of genocide against Israel. And South Africa finally did. And we kept pushing other countries to sign on, and several of them did. Then we set up this new action that's at this next link, and generated a couple 100,000 or more emails to many nations, missions to the UN, asking them to do what Kathy has suggested. The Security Council has failed. We need to go around it. We need the General Assembly to act democratically under the Uniting for Peace resolution. And we got a statement out of the General Assembly. We didn't get the full strength of what we're asking for. So principally with the leadership of Kathy Kelly, we developed with a coalition of organizations this new message, which is in italics here on this page, principally so that you can translate it, because this webpage will translate and you can see what it says in English in some other language. But to actually send it, you need to get down here to the bottom and fill in your information, as I will do here, and click Start Writing. And you will now see the message in English, and the translation trick won't translate it. But all you have to do is click the red button where it says Send Letter. And when you send it, it's going to send 205 emails to 205 individuals, almost all of them from separate nations, represented at the United Nations, their missions to the UN, plus key UN officials in key UN agencies at the UN. Those 205 people will get that message with that one click. They will get it in English. And we hope they will be able to read it, and we hope they will take it seriously. The more people who do it, the more seriously they will take it. And if I wanted to actually show you, well, I can simply tell you, if you go to that link and you read the email that we're sending, you can feel free to edit it, add to it, change it, modify, put in some personal messages. That will help. Change the subject line. That will help. But the key bit at the bottom says that we want the General Assembly to take actions. Some of those actions depend on what the member states of the UN do. So if the General Assembly votes to expel Israel from the United Nations, it is simply expelled in that instant. Done. Nothing more is needed. If it votes for targeted sanctions on Israeli officials, that depends on the number of nations that do it, but it is done to the extent that the nations do it. And we're talking about getting the majority of the nations of the world to vote to do it. So presumably they're going to follow through. And the same goes for an arms embargo or providing unarmed peacekeepers. All we need is some nations to provide them, and they will all be requested to do so if the General Assembly finds the nerve and the decency to act. So the key message is, you are not powerless. You are not subject to the veto of one imperial madman in the Security Council. You are the representatives of the world. Vote now.
Thank you so much, David. And thank to all of you who are putting in done in the chat. I'm seeing dozens of people have already made this effort happen. We could have up to 40,000 emails sent today if all of us get in that into that link and send it. And as Kathy invited all of us, we would like you to send that link, copy it, and send it out to at least 100 other people. This, we can drive a wedge into this conflict by getting the General Assembly to act on this such important measure. So thanks to all of you who are acting right now. We have a great lineup of speakers, and we're also going to have another call to action at the end with a sign-on letter. So please stay tuned. This is not over. We are just getting started. It's my pleasure now, after thanking David again. David, along with being author, activist, and journalist, is also an amazing technician to make all of this happen so easily, allowing us to act for peace in Palestine with the click of a button. So thanks to all of you who have joined us and are signing in. Again, the link is in the chat if anybody has just joined. Please copy that and prepare it to send out to 100 other people. It's my pleasure now to invite our first speaker, Mr. Raji Sourani. Mr. Sourani is the director of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights. Since 1977, he has dedicated himself to the cause of human rights. He has been recognized internationally and won awards recognized by France, England, the United States, Austria, Spain. And since 2015, he has been a counsel on the International Criminal Court and coordinator of the Palestinian legal team to represent Palestinian victims at the ICC. In 2024, Raji has become a member of South Africa's legal team in the genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Please let me welcome and turn the microphone over to Mr. Sourani. David, do you see?
He was on a minute ago on his iPad. but I
Yes.
don't see him now.
I had made Raji's iPad a co-host, which would allow him to speak.
Okay, everyone, please bear with us just a second. We'll see if Mr. Sarani is able to connect.
If he has left and come back, I can make him a co-host again if I can find him. How about Raji Wi-Fi? Let's try that one.
Yes.
Now a co-host.
There you are, Raji. Mr.
Yes,
Sarani.
yes.
Yes. We've given you the introduction and you now have the microphone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I was disconnected for some reason I don't know about. My iPad was just disconnected totally from you, and I'm trying again through my iPhone. I mean, to see. I hope it
Thank you.
works now.
Your perseverance in connecting is only in addition to your perseverance for the struggle for human rights for Palestinians. So thank you so much. We can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. I do appreciate really very much. I mean, all the efforts. I mean, you are doing in support and solidarity, not for Palestinian people, but for humanity at large. And one of the test case for humanity is what's going on right now. I mean, in the occupied Palestinian territories and Lebanon. At this moment, I'm just talking to you right now. What's happening in northern Gaza, unspeakable, unspeakable. I mean, for the last 13 months already, I mean, we faced this genocide, which was clear cut from the first days of this horrendous war by Israel against the Palestinians. And that lasted, I mean, 13 months, and the whole world watching that streamed live at the real time. And what's shocking, that the convention called it's the Convention of Prevention of Genocide crime, but what we are seeing right now, genocide in a process for 13 months, and the whole world seeing it broadcasted air at the real time, the level of destruction, the displacement, the starvation going on, and there is no serious attempt, especially, I mean, by the Western countries, I mean, US and Europe, to try to have an end for that, or to stop it, or to seize it. No, this is going on, and every day the appetite of Israel increasing more and more. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the West was in unique action. And they said, oh, that's terrible, that's bad, that's ugly, don't pay care. They invade, they occupy, they have to be held accountable, and they have to pay for that. And promptly, immediately, they said Ukrainians do have the right of self-defense, they have the right of self-determination, they have the right to resist Russians by all ways and means, calling upon all free people across the globe to take arms and go and help Ukrainians in resisting the Russian occupation and invasion. And Western countries will support definitely Ukraine with all ways and means, politically, legally, with money, and with arms, with no limits, till they get rid of this Russian invasion and occupation. Not only that, they imposed on Russia 7 layers of unprecedented sanctions, which through it they wanted to paralyze entirely the Russian economy. More, they even didn't satisfy with that, but they resorted to the ICC and the ICJ, to the International Criminal Court and to the International Court of Justice as well, in order to hold the Russian accountable. That reminds me of the old Rome. In old Rome, there was 2 classes, masters and slaves. Slaves don't enjoy the protection of law. You can slaughter them at the daylight in any place in the front of the people, and you never be held accountable. Masters are the ones who are protected with law and privileged with law. It seems that the West look to the Palestinians as if we are the slaves of the 21st century, and to have genocide against us, that's normal, and that can be allowed to Israel. And Israel can be allowed to have even the right of self-defense. This is a big shame. This is the selectivity. This is the racism. And this is the politicization of international law, international humanitarian law, and the human rights. We are not the slaves of the 21st century. We are human beings. We have dignity, and we will fight for justice and freedom. And the short version, we have an occupation of 57 years. 57 years of criminal, belligerent occupation, prolonged belligerent occupation. We have only, in the last 14 years, 7 wars against Gaza only. 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2017, the Great March of Return, 21, 22, 23 May. And the long version had this crime since Nakba, where the entire Palestinian people has been victimized. 76 years, Palestinian people are suffering around the clock due to this Israeli massive crime against the Palestinian people. We tried to use all ways and means of our struggle, including, the legal one, including the universal standards and values which resulted from the Second World War, atrocities, horror, and the crimes committed during it. 85 million civilians died in the Second World War, and after that, the creme de la creme of the intellectuals, academics, politicians, activists, socialists get together. The war carried between armies, victims. Why 85 million people erased? Why entire cities, villages erased? Why entire races almost erased? No, I mean, that should be protected. And that's how Nuremberg trials came. Called accountable on the Holocaust. And that's how was there. That's why Geneva Conventions were there. That's why the Convention Against Genocide was there. And we think, as the Palestinians, we do have the right to use international law, international humanitarian law, and the human rights effectively to protect the civilians, Palestinian civilians, who are in all the Israeli wars, were in the eye of the storm. And they were them all the way long. So that's why we began by claims that the Western world was saying, Palestinians, you are like Arabs, demagogue. You just saying politically claims and political rhetoric. It's not based, it's not factual, it's not documented. You don't resort to law. We resorted to law, and we resorted to the Israeli law, though we know in advance never ever justice or dignity can be achieved under occupation, and there is no rule of law ever through the Israeli military system. When we resorted to the Israeli system, we discovered simple, clear facts that Israel, through its legal system, legitimized willful killing, assassination, torture, house demolition, collective punishment. They legitimized even blockade on Gaza. They legitimized expulsion. They legitimized the new brand of apartheid. Imposed in the West Bank. They legitimized the for Palestinian inclusion was after thousands of cases filed on our legal system, which is legal cover for the organized systematic crime by this belligerent occupation. UK, in Spain, in Switzerland, in Netherlands, in South Africa, and in New Zealand, Australia, and other countries. But what had happened was very shameful by these Western governments. They blocked us after some good success cases, in cases like against Sibilivni in UK, and in cases in Spain, like the one against 7 of the Israeli leaders, whom the Spanish Audiencia Nacional issued warrant to arrest them. So after that, we saw a wave of changes of law, which provide more and more immunity to the Israeli war criminals, whom these courts find them, there is basis for arrest and investigating them. Now, after that, and especially after Goldstone report 2008-9, after the war in Gaza, we resorted as well to International Criminal Court. And there was very long journey there. And we were proud of one thing, that at one stage, there was very brave, courageous prosecutor called Fatou Bensouda, like piece of African marble. And she was able to conclude after 7 years in February 2021 that yes, investigation should be opened and Israel has basis to be suspected and to be held accountable. Unfortunately, since Mr. Karim Khan took over, he even refused to meet with us. I'm the coordinator of the legal team who represents Palestinian ICC. And fortunate to us, we tried day and night to approach him and to activate his capacity to stop the genocide in the occupied territories, especially in Gaza. And that was with total failure. He didn't listen. He didn't answer even to our calls. That's why we resorted to South African and what it represents morally, politically, legally. And they were generous enough to follow the will of Nelson Mandela. South Africa never will be free till Palestinians be free. And we cooperated fully with them, provided them of all what they needed to be equipped with, to go with a strong case and super fantastic team of South African, Palestinians, and Irish went to the court and represented the case in the best way can be represented. That was a great achievement. And I think January 11th this year, South Africa made the history. And we were very proud to show the moral, legal, human superiority on the criminals who are doing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide at the daylight in Palestine, and to be accused the most important court on earth. Now, the ICJ invested their best in 3 consecutive decisions, provisional decisions, but though the decisions were simple, clear, and asking international community to implement it with the humanitarian aid and the food, none of these things implemented. And what we witnessed, vice versa, by the West. They were saying judges went too far and they should stop. Prosecutors have no rights to do this and that. And in the US, even presidential decree was issued and very known threats to the prosecutors and judges were all over the place. So 3 consecutive provisional measures, decisions has been taken. None of them has been implemented. This is a big shame We, as I said in the very beginning, not stupid or naive. We don't think, I mean, any nation will be liberated through court decision. And there isn't one precedent in history as such, but this is genuine part of our struggle because we are believing in rule of law. We do believe in dignity of man. We do believe in international law. And we want these standards, which universally accepted, being implemented. Palestinians cannot be exception. They have the right to enjoy and to have it. We want to see the Ukrainians enjoying it, but you cannot deny that on the Palestinians as well. So the selectivity and politicization of international law, something we are working very hard against, and we want to see rule of. We will never give up because that's what they want us to disbelieve in international law, to disbelieve in ICC and the ICJ, to lose hope in these systems and injustice. We will never do that because that's what they want exactly. They want the rule of jungle, not the rule of law. And we will not go to their footsteps. What they are doing, Israel, not with the complicit West, but Israel with the partners in the West. Because till this moment, north of Gaza, south of Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, bombarded with American European arms. We are killed till this moment with these arms. And we know, I mean, Palestinian people legally are entitled for right of self-determination, and self-determination gives us all the legitimate right to resist the occupation and not to be a good victim for any till we achieve our freedom and dignity and end this criminal belligerent occupation. We are on the right side of history. We are defending just, fair, right cause. We will never give up. It's not our right to give up. And we will continue the fight, and we will never lose the hope or strategic optimism. We are strong enough, but we are much stronger with the support of the free, committed people across the globe, people like you. You make us feel much more stronger and much more determined to have an end for this criminal, belligerent occupation, hopefully soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sohani. That was a clear-eyed, passionate call for justice, human dignity, and stopping the genocide. We have time for one question. If somebody would like to put it in the chat, I would just ask Mr. Sohani if you could comment how you think this campaign for the genocide could, very briefly, help to end the war. Do you think it could help to end the war? In addition to the cause for Palestinian and for the rule of law, could this criminal case in genocide help, the ICJ court ruling, help to end the war?
I think it's vital and very important to keep raising the voice. Governments, again, in the West, they are not complicit. They are partners. They are fully partner. And the only way that the pressure come from people can make difference. And I think people power, it's very important, vital, needed, and it's very strategical. And definitely these activities across the globe, in New York, in Boston, in Chicago, in London, in Madrid, in Paris, in London, even in Tokyo, you know, it's very, very important to demonstrate solidarity, support, and to say it up, stop the genocide in Palestine.
Thank you so much for that call to action. That is the purpose behind our webinar today, and behind this effort for global solidarity for peace in Palestine, to get us to act. For those of you who have joined us, there are links in the chat so that you can send emails to members of the United Nations member states, calling on them to use their power in the UN Resolution 377 to act to end the war and stop the genocide. Thank you so much, Mr. Serrani, for that very clear-eyed and passionate articulation of the rights of Palestinians to exist. I'd now like to turn it over to
My
Colonel
honor.
Ann Wright.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call for our next speaker, Colonel Ann Wright, who is a retired United States Army colonel, also a retired U.S. State Department official, who is known for her outspoken resistance and opposition to the Iraq War. Colonel Wright was also a passenger on Challenger 1, which along with Mavi Marma was part of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. Colonel Wright continues to organize Gaza Freedom Flotillas, and with Code Pink, demands that U.S. officials acknowledge and immediately end their complicity and partnership with Israel's genocidal war against Palestinians. Colonel Wright, you have the microphone.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. And first, I would like to say to Raji, whom we first met in 2009 when a Code Pink delegation came to Gaza following the 27-day Israeli attack, cast lead. And then our delegations through 2009 and then 2011 and 12, you were so kind to meet with us. And with the Palestine Center for Human Rights has been one of the organizations that we could always turn to get the most recent information about what has been going on in Gaza. And I would also like to apologize for a weapon that was dropped on your home, a 2,000-pound bomb from the United States of America that was dropped by the Israelis and forced you to leave your home and go elsewhere. So we, the U.S., are neck deep, eyeball deep, over our heads deep in the complicity of what the genocide is going on, the Israeli genocide, and I would say the U.S. genocide of Palestine. And that is despite the best efforts, well, not best because we're not succeeding yet, but we're putting pressure on administration, the Biden administration, but it hasn't resulted in the stopping of weapons that are going in, U.S. weapons going into to Gaza yet. But we will continue this effort. And in fact, with the U.S. elections coming in on Tuesday, we know the positions of the candidates, and none of them are what we want. We continue to press Vice President Harris on something more than her commentary of self-defense for Israel. And yes, we are passionate about the civilian deaths that are going on in Gaza. Well, that's not enough. I mean, the only way this can end from the U.S. point of view is to stop the weapons transfers and stop the funding to the apartheid state of Israel, which we will continue to work on hard. And in fact, in this next week, we have what are called the National Days of Action here in the United States, where we are calling upon all organizations that are supportive of Palestine, both Gaza and the West Bank, and of course now including Lebanon and the Israeli attacks on Lebanon, to stop the U.S. provision of weapons to Israel. We are working on a joint resolution of disapproval. It's kind of a weird name, but it's Bernie Sanders in the Senate has 6 different weapon systems that he is bringing up for a vote in the U.S. Congress about whether or not these weapons should be provided to Israel. Well, it's the first time a vote has come up. We also will be in the House of Representatives. Code Pink Women for Peace has been organizing daily meetings with congressional delegations. And it's tough. I mean, the U.S. Congress has not been helpful at all, although we do have a core group of representatives, mostly Democrats, that are challenging the U.S. Role in this, but it's not nearly enough to really put pressure on the Biden-Harris administration. The U.S. elections that are coming up are not only for the presidency, but also for the Senate and House of Representatives. The House, all members of the House of Representatives, all 400, I think 32 of them are up for election, and 34 members of the U.S. Senate. So we are appealing to U.S. citizens to remember what has been going on and how people are voting on whether or not to limit what the U.S. is doing, and for the protection of Palestinians, on the issues of the anti-Semitic speech, which the U.S. Congress is now trying to say that any criticism of the state of Israel is anti-Semitic, which of course it's not. It's just a legitimate criticism of the apartheid and genocidal policies of the state of Israel. So we're working on that. And then we're also trying to host, speakers that come into the Washington area. And just this last week, the UN Special Rapporteur for Palestine, Francesca Albanese, was here, and she spoke at Georgetown University in a very important presentation. She was to speak in an informal briefing at the U.S. Congress, but it got canceled at the last moment because of Democratic senior pressure put on the congressperson and Carson, who had his office had said that we could use that his authority to get a room in the Congress, but it got canceled at the last moment. And why? Well, because the special rapporteur has a new report out, a 30-page report that everyone should read. It is footnoted, 312 footnotes to identify exactly where she gets her information. And it is one of the most detailed compendiums of the horrific genocide that's going on in Gaza. So we'll put that in the chat, and please take the time to read it and use the data that's in that report to talk with your family and your friends about how they need to get activated in Palestine solidarity. Of course, that the special rapporteur, who has the nerve to speak the truth, of course, gets great criticism from the Biden and Harris administration. And in fact, the U.S. representative to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield, had the audacity to put in Twitter and X that her report and she is anti-Semitic. Well, it just goes to show how horrible that this administration has been, that it continues, despite the documented genocide that's going on, continues to support the state of Israel. That's why we in the United States have this opportunity now with this election coming up, not necessarily on the presidential side of it, unless you'll go ahead and vote for Gerald Stein, who is the one candidate that is really speaking the right words of stopping the genocide. But the two major political parties that don't want a third party involved in this at all, of course, still have the same policies that they've they've had, which is support for the state of Israel, no matter what it does. I'll mention not only do we have this National Week of Action on stopping the weapons from the United States, and if you all are in the United States, and on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll be having events in the U.S. Congress, and particularly on Wednesday, the 13th, if you can join us, we're going to have a large number of people that are just walking through the halls of Congress with the photos of babies, children, men, women who have been killed by U.S. weapons, and hoping to, again, month after month after month, keep pressing the U.S. Congress that they must start voting to stop the U.S. complicity in genocide. I'll also mention that right now we have Students for Justice in Palestine that are meeting in a national convention at Georgetown University. So the students who have been so supportive and got knocked down with all of their encampments earlier this year, they are not silent. They are going to be coming back to push their universities, push their families for justice in Palestine. And I'll just mention, I was in Europe last week, and I was at a conference, and with that conference, we went to the International Court of the International Criminal Court. And here's one of the flyers that they gave out to us, which has the in it the various cases that are before the ICC, and one of them, of course, is Palestine. And in that, the prosecutor, Mr. Karim, who has not done much, I'll tell you, but he did have these arrest warrants issued for 3 people from Gaza, 3 Hamas senior leadership, and 2 from Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Gallant. Well, one of the questions we put to the juror that was addressing us as a part of the briefing for the ICC is, what is going to happen when you have 3 of the people for this arrest warrant that have now been extrajudicially executed by the other 2 that are on this arrest warrant? Won't that help move this arrest warrant forward? Well, it's still sitting there, and still that appellate court that has to issue the arrest warrants for the killers, for the authors, for the architects of the genocide of Gaza, and also the West Bank and Lebanon are still free there. So these are other things we can put pressure on the ICC to issue those arrest warrants. And certainly the letter that we have from the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine that can go to all the members of the UN General Assembly are very, very important for all of us. So with that, I want to thank everyone for being here, and particularly for Raji and Amal, who are the Palestinians that are receiving the brunt of what U.S. policies are right now. Our deepest apologies, and we're going to keep working to free Palestine and justice for Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel Wright, for those remarks. If anybody has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. There are several things in the chat right now. And if you're in the United States, you can write to your senators. Some of the reports that Colonel Wright referred to are in there. And thank you so much for your activism and continuing to lead on this issue and to push the representatives in the United States who, as many people in the chat are mentioning, are very much complicit, in partnership, and responsible for what is happening. So with that, I don't see any questions, so I'll move to our next speaker. We have the privilege today and the honor of listening to Amal Siam directly from Gaza. She is in Gaza at this moment and fortunately is able to connect and be with us here today. Ms. Siam is the director of the Women's Affairs Center, which is one of the oldest civil society organizations in the Gaza Strip. She has worked as a trainer and a program director and she is an authorized member of the Palestinian Independent Commission for Human Rights. It's my privilege and honor to turn the microphone over so that we can all listen to the personal testimony of Ms. Sayan.
مساء الخير للجميع
She will be
وشكر
speaking in Arabic, so please
Yes.
turn your channels on.
مساء الخير للجميع وشكرا لجميع القائمين على هذا اللقاء التضامني، ولنكن جميعا صوتا واحدا لدعم وقف حرب الإبادة الجماعية على قطاع غزة وإنهاء الاحتلال على فلسطين. وسأحاول أن أتحدث في مداخلتي وأركز على أوضاع النساء تحت حرب الإبادة، وسأحاول الاختصار لأن الحديث حول حرب الإبادة وما أحدثته على الفلسطينيين يطول. الحقيقة أن أكثر من عام وأكثر من 394 يوم والاحتلال الإسرائيلي ماضي في حرب الإبادة والتهجير والتجويع والتعطيش في قطاع غزة، مستمر في عدوانه جوا وبرا وبحرا على القطاع، يقصف المنازل ويقصف المدارس ويقصف المشافي وتجمعات النازحين وخيام النازحين على رؤوسهم، ويرتكب جرائم قتل جماعي ضد الكل الفلسطيني وبشكل خاص ضد النساء والأطفال الذين يمثلون النسبة الأكبر من ضحايا جرائم الاحتلال. وأكثر من عام ونحن نقتل ونذبح على مرأى ومسمع من العالم، ومنذ 7 أكتوبر وحتى هذا اليوم وآلة القتل لن تتوقف والمقتلة لم تتوقف، وتحصد كل يوم آلاف الشهداء من النساء والرجال. أكثر من 11,800 امرأة قتلت أثناء هذا العدوان، هذه الحرب الإبادة، وأكثر من 65,000 امرأة جريحة، وأكثر من 17,210 من شهداء من الأطفال، وحوالي 800 طفل استشهدوا وأعمارهم أقل من عام. 70% من ضحايا حرب الإبادة هم النساء والأطفال. 35,000 طفل وأكثر يعيشون بدون والديهم أو بدون أحدهما. مسحت عائلات، أكثر من 1210 عائلات مسحت من السجل المدني، وآخرها كان العائلات عائلة أبو النصر وغيرها في شمال قطاع غزة في جباليا وفي بيت لاهيا. ويكاد فعليا لا يمضي يوم واحد دون أن يسقط عشرات ومئات الشهداء من النساء ومن الرجال ومن الأطفال. لا نقول ذلك بلغة الأرقام حتى تظهر أن الأمر أرقاما، لا، نحن لسنا أرقاما. كل امرأة تموت، كل امرأة تقتل، هي لها حلمها، لها ذكرياتها، لها بيتها، لها أحلامها، لها مستقبلها. 2 مليون فلسطيني في قطاع غزة اختبروا تجارب النزوح لأكثر من مرة، وقد سمعنا عن نزوح وصل ل24 مرة فما فوق. أكثر من 90% من سكان قطاع غزة ينزحون من مكان لآخر في أقل من 10% مساحة القطاع. وأين يذهبون؟ يذهبون إلى الخيام، في الشوارع، في المناطق الفارغة، إلى ما تبقى من المشافي، ما تبقى من الجامعات، من مراكز الإيواء والأماكن الأخرى. أكثر من عام من الإبادة والمرأة الفلسطينية تعيش أشكال مختلفة من العذابات والمعاناة وتدفع الثمن غالياً. النساء الآن تفتقر لأبسط مقومات الحياة، تعيش أوضاع صعبة في ظل نقص المياه ونقص الشراب ونقص الطعام ونقص غاز الطهي ومستلزمات النظافة والنظافة الشخصية. النساء تتحمل أعباء كبيرة لحماية أسرهم ورعاية أطفالهم. النساء أجبروا على مواجهة ظروف بالغة القسوة في مخيمات النزوح وأماكن الإيواء. النساء الآن تجمع الحطب والكرتون والورق من الشوارع لتشعل النار وتطهو وتعد الخبز على النار. النساء الآن تقف طوابير لجلب المياه وأمام التكيات لتجلب الطعام لأولادها، تغسل وتنظف وتدبر أمور أسرتها في مواجهة ندرة الموارد والأدوات ومستلزمات النظافة. النساء والفتيات يقفن طوابير أمام دورات المياه المشتركة. لا زالت النساء والفتيات تعاني من نقص مستلزمات النظافة والنظافة الشخصية، يعانوا من نقص الحفاضات النسائية. تستخدم النساء للأسف قطع القماش بديلا لذلك. النساء تقضي النهار والليل في ذات الملابس ولأيام عديدة دون أن تنعم بفرصة كافية للاستحمام. أن تأخذي حمام مرة في الأسبوع هذا يعني أنك امرأة محظوظة. إن أبرز مظاهر الحرب أيضا على النساء هو انعدام الخصوصية للنساء والفتيات. كيف ستشعر النساء بالخصوصية؟ من أين ستأتي الخصوصية؟ من أين؟ كيف سنشعر بالخصوصية ونحن نتواجد بالعشرات داخل خيمة واحدة، نساء ورجالا في مساحات ضيقة أقل من مساحة غرفة، نفس التراب؟ أن لنا أن نشعر بالخصوصية وخيامنا متلاصقة، نستمع إلى أنفاس بعضنا البعض. ما شكل الخصوصية التي سنشعر بها ونحن نقف طوابير على دورات المياه، نمر من أمام الجميع، نحمل جالونات المية والملابس ليعرف كل المحيطين بأننا نتوجه لأخذ حمام؟ الحقيقة أننا في حالة انكشاف على بعضنا البعض وأبعد ما نكون عن الخصوصية. أصعب سؤال يمكن أن تسأله لامرأة في قطاع غزة هو: كيف حالك وكيف نفسيتك؟ لأن الإجابة ستكون صادمة ومحزنة. كيف نسأل هذا السؤال لامرأة نازحة اختبرت النزوح لأكثر من مرة؟ كيف نسأل هذا السؤال لامرأة فقدت الزوج والعائلة والبيت والمأوى؟ كيف لنا نسأل ذلك لأم شاهدت أولادها يقتلون أمام أعينهم؟ أم جمعت أشلاء أطفالها؟ أمهات اعتقلن. كيف لنا أن نرى ذلك ونقول كيف حالك للمرأة؟ كل نساء غزة يعانون من الخوف ومن القلق ومن نوبات الهلع ومن عدم القدرة على النوم ومن اليأس ومن الإحباط ومن اضطرابات النوم والطعام. الأمهات في كل العالم تحضن أولادها وهم أحياء، وللأسف الشديد المرأة الفلسطينية في قطاع غزة تحتضن جثث أولادها وأكفان أولادها وأزواجها وأخوتها وأصدقائها. أكثر من 690 ألف امرأة وفتاة في قطاع غزة في سن الحيض لازلن يحتاجن إلى مستلزمات النظافة الصحية، ويحتاجن إلى الوصول الآمن والسهل للمياه ولدورات المياه وللخصوصية، الأمر الذي دفع بالعدد الكبير من النساء والفتيات بتناول حبوب منع الحمل إن وجدت لإيقاف الدورة الشهرية. عدد كبير من النساء بيعانوا من مشاكل جلدية، أمراض جلدية، مشاكل تتعلق بالصحة الإنجابية. إسرائيل وخلال حرب الإبادة استهدفت المشافي ودمرت المنظومة الصحية، وخرجت العديد كل المشافي وعيادات الطبية ومراكز الرعاية الأولية عن الخدمة. وقفت إمدادات الأدوية والمستلزمات الطبية، وهناك عدم كفاية في النقاط الطبية وعدم توفر في الأطباء. كل هذا كان له أثراً كارثياً على صحة النساء، وخاصة النساء كبيرات السن، النساء الحوامل، النساء حديثات الولادة، النساء مريضات السرطان وذوات الإعاقة. فقد تفشت الأمراض في العديد بين النساء والفتيات بسبب تلوث المياه ونقص الرعاية الصحية والأغذية وسوء النظافة، وانتشرت أمراض التيفوئيد والتهاب بالوبد الكبائي والجفاف والإسهال، وانتشرت الأمراض الجلدية ومشاكل لها علاقة بالصحة الإنجابية، وانتشر القمل في رؤوس الكبار والصغار. 60,000 امرأة حامل، 180 حالة ولادة يوميا يعانين من مضاعفات الحمل والولادة بسبب نقص الرعاية، يعانين من حدوث ولادات غير آمنة. عشرات الآلاف من النساء الحوامل يعانين من الجوع الشديد وسوء التغذية. 99% والمكملات الغذائية. 76% يعانون من فقر الدم. زيادة حالات الإجهاض إلى ما يقارب 300% بسبب الخوف والقلق والإجهاد والتعب وبسبب النزوح المتكرر. ولادات مبكرة تهدد حياة الأمهات وحياة الأطفال. أيضا هناك زيادة في حالات الولادات القيصرية، واضطرار الأطباء لاستئصال أرحام النساء من أجل الحفاظ على حياتهن، مما يجعلهن غير قادرات على الإنجاب مستقبلا. أيضا قلة الأسرة ونقص الكادر الطبي وعدم وجود رعاية طبية تسبب في وفاة الكثير من النساء خلال الولادة. وحرمت النساء من البقاء في المشافي للوقت الكافي، إذ تضطر النساء للخروج من المشفى قبل أقل من ساعتين، وهذا يخالف البروتوكولات الطبية والإجراءات المعمول بها دوليا. أيضا لدينا 9,900 مريضة سرطان بيعانوا من نقص الأدوية والعلاجات الكيميائية ونقص خدمات التشخيص المبكر وغياب خدمة العلاج بالخارج، ويعانوا من الضغوطات النفسية والتوترات. وزارة الصحة سنويا تكشف عن 500 مصابة بسرطان الثدي، ومنذ 7 أكتوبر لم نتمكن من هذا الكشف، بمعنى أن هناك 500 امرأة سنويا، يعني العام الماضي والعام الحالي. وأيضا هناك 2200 إصابة بالأورام سنويا يتم الكشف عنها، ولم تتمكن الوزارة من عمل ذلك لعدم وجود الأجهزة ولعدم لتدمير المشافي ولاستهداف الأطباء المتخصصين. حتى عندما تأتي النساء لتسأل عن الكشف المبكر نحن لا نستطيع أن نفعل ذلك لعدم وجود الأطباء وعدم وجود المتخصصين. أيضا 95% من سكان قطاع غزة بيعانوا من مستويات كارثية من انعدام الأمن الغذائي. النساء تعاني من انعدام أمن غذائي، تعاني من التجويع، وخاصة التجويع الممنهج الذي تفرضه إسرائيل على شمال قطاع غزة، على الشمال وعلى مدينة غزة، والذي لا يمر يوم دون أن تسجل حالات من الوفاة. أيضا إسرائيل اعتقلت العشرات من النساء وتم اعتقالهم في ظروف قاهرة. سرقت ما بحوزتهن وجردن من ملابسهن وتم التنكيل بهن وتعصيب عيونهن، وتعرضن للضرب وتعرضن للتحرش وتعرضن للتهديد بالاغتصاب والاغتصاب. كل ذلك يحدث فعليا على مرأى ومسمع من العالم. أيضا النساء ذوات الإعاقة يعانين أيضا في ظل حرب الإبادة، يعانين من فقدان الأدوات، من عدم موائمة حتى أماكن النزوح، من نقص الدواء، من نقص العلاج. كل هذا يعتبر نقطة في بحر معاناة المرأة الفلسطينية في ظل حرب الإبادة، وخاصة أننا نتحدث عن حرب إبادة مستمرة إلى هذه اللحظة. مطلوب وبشكل واضح وسريع وقف الإبادة الجماعية على قطاع غزة. مطلوب فتح المعابر ودخول كل المساعدات لمساعدة فلسطيني يعيشون فيها. مطلوب توثيق جرائم الاحتلال، مطلوب مساءلة الاحتلال على ما يقترفه من جرائم ضد الفلسطينيين. مطلوب أن تستمروا في جهودكم لوقف حرب الإبادة. وشكرا لكل إنسان يشعر بأن الفلسطيني إنسان مثله ويتضامن مع القضية الفلسطينية ويرفع شعار نعم لوقف الإبادة. وشكرا.
Thank you so much, Amal, for that very compelling testimony about the plight and the overwhelming inhumane situation that women face in Gaza. We see lots of comments in the chat about what people can do to address this overwhelming situation. Again, thank you so much for being with us today and providing us with that very moving and compelling testimony about the plight of women. It is a call to action. And that is what we have a second. For those of you who have joined or have already done one call to action, we have a second call to action to have a sign-on letter that I'm going to invite Leo Gabriel, who is a journalist and anthropologist and part of the World Social Forum moving social movements and resistances around the globe, is going to talk to us about a sign-on letter that we can all sign on electronically today, and again, invite people to sign on to end this madness. Leo, I'll turn the microphone over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me in here. This initiative is inspired by the fact that besides the many justified accusations and laments and so on, we need to get the feeling that we are able to do something about this terrible situation. And there are two lines within this World Social Forum, which has been able to stage in the 15th of February 2003, the biggest concentration in human mankind against the war in Iraq, to take up our role of being a binding element of many different movements, which Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now, Leo. It froze for a second.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
The task, I think, is that the many different movements who have their right would converge on the peace issue, because without peace, you cannot have any justice. And without justice, you can have any peace. So the question is on which level we could interact with the people on the official stage of big states, be it the United Nations or whatever. And there is, as a result, we have been discussing in this initiative a text which I would like Rick to put online, if it is possible, where we have some...
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Okay, sure.
Where we have some concrete proposals, because sometimes our solidarity feelings are so big that we forget to say, what can we do about this situation? What is realistically to be done? Where can be a way out? And that is this paper where we call for every movement, the women's movement, the ecology movement, the trade union movements, and so on, to pick up on that. And in order to press, and more than press, to oblige in a certain way, the only instance which can do something effectively, including on the military side, by getting peace forces to Gaza, to the Palestinian territories. And I don't read the many different, which already has been mentioned, many different decisions of the United Nations, which never have been implemented, unfortunately, because of the blockade of the Security Council. And I want to tell only the ones where there is a possibility that the United Nations General Assembly can take action in case that the Security Council fails to act, whatever reason it is, and to address ourselves to the many, many countries. And if you count them together, it would be a rather large majority, verging towards 2/3 of the General Assembly, who could be in favor of the following actions. Now, I didn't get the paper, but the first is, of course, demanding an immediate ceasefire. And the second is that there are to call for peacekeeping forces to go into the Palestinian territory and make what has been made already in other circumstances in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in East Timor, and so on, to really have a force which could be thousands or 10,000s of blue helmet soldiers to move in and say, it's enough. It's enough, and we have the responsibility in the name of the world to intervene here in order to stop this killing, this madness, which is inflicted upon Gaza and upon the West Bank, all the territories. And of course, to let humanitarian aid into the country. That is another reivindication, which is, I've just listened to what the lady from Palestine said. It's really a shame that people are tortured through hunger, through not having medical care, and so on. I need not to tell you that. The thing is that we have to prove that the civil society is able, with the support of countries, of states. I have been in Nepal and in other countries of Latin America, and they are all for this kind of initiative, and they would be able, humanitarianly, these are countries from the global south, and to press and together with the movement, and Wright was pointing out, which is happening in the United States, where also I think they alone cannot achieve it. It must have the the backup of international civil society in that way. And I'm sure we can win it over if we hold all together. And not only the peace movement in the Northern European countries, there is already a convergence that happened between the ecology movement, the movement for climate justice, and the peace movement. And in other cases, there is a convergence between the trade unions and the peace movement and so on. And the women's movement is playing an enormous role, like it has been pointed out by previous speakers already, to link these things together. And I'm sure that if we unite around these common strategies, we will have an effect in a not so far away future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo. And as several people have been asking, the link to that sign-on letter is in the chat posted by David Swanson. We do have time for questions or comments, and all of our speakers are still with us. Colonel Wright, Mr. Sarani, and Ms. Siam are still here online. If anyone would like to say something to them, I saw one comment in the chat, sending many blessings to Siam in Gaza, hoping for your safety and peace soon in Gaza. So thank you very much for that comment. If anybody, please feel free and help me out. If you raise your hand, we can have you, or put your comment or question in the chat. We would like to open this up to conversation and comments. I see Nick Maltern has your hand up. Please go ahead, Nick. Unmute yourself. Or David, you may have to help me.
We have to ask him to unmute, and I have done that.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to ask if any of those on our conference today have organized to put pressure on major banks and financial institutions who are invested in the military industry and oil. Such companies as State Street Financial, Vanguard, BlackRock, and Fidelity. There are other, obviously, companies and investment firms around the world who are benefiting greatly from what is happening right now and have tremendous political power. But up to this point, I think they've escaped the attention and certainly of the press, probably not wanting to get into their business. And I wonder if there's a way for us to mobilize and start calling them to account. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Nick. Do any of our speakers, Kathy, do you want to try and respond to that?
Well, I would just want to call attention to the student movement. Follow the young people. They tried hard to get information about where their universities were investing money. And then there's been a crackdown on that same student movement since they went back to their campuses. So I think find ways to support the students and continue their very valiant effort to get clear statements about where their universities are investing the funds, and not only to then seek divulging information, but to seek divestment. And thank you, Nick, for encouraging us to hold all of these international institutions accountable as well under international law and human decency.
Thanks,
And
Kathy.
I'm so glad to see Catherine Hughes Freitag's hand is up.
Yes. Catherine, go ahead. I just want to mention before you go, Catherine, There's a comment in the chat. Somebody has posted a boycott on Chevron for their participation in the genocide. So please feel free to click on that link for more information and action. Catherine Hughes.
Yes. Hi, Rick, and thank you, Kathy, also. Thank you so much for all the speakers, especially the Palestinians who, as you said, are under, great duress. It's been 75 plus years. This is a horrible, horrible time in the struggle, especially in Gaza and the genocide. And I just want to, send out my heart felt connection to them and solidarity. Our hearts are breaking around the world, and we are with you. And as Raji said, none of us will give up ever until we have a free Palestine. So I just wanted to say that. Basically, my question or my comment, I did also want to mention American Friends Service Committee. As a response to Nick, they have a very strong staff and alliance and research working on BDS, and they've done an amazing job at doing research on all of these companies that are, doing well and supporting the Israeli genocide and the U.S. complicity with that. So that's another place I think it's really important to look, and they've been helping a lot of us at universities around the country in the US, but also internationally. So that's a good resource. My question and comment, and this was actually something that Kathy Kelly brought up, and I think it was an amazing idea, that on the November 24th, if we think about it together as a group, how we could do concurrent actions across the world in support of Palestinian solidarity. One of the issues and that's the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. That's on November 24th. One of the suggestions, and I think it's a great one, is having actions at all Israeli consulates and embassies around the world at the same time. It could be a week, it could be a day. My organization, Solidarity 2020 and Beyond, which is an international network of nonviolent leaders and activists on many movements around the world. We have a number of people in Palestine, Gaza, and others that are part of the group. We have tried this already over the last year, and we've had really successful protests in Kenya, Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Colombia, and many other countries, but it wasn't at the same time with an international initiative. And so I just want to put that out there as an idea for everyone. I think that would be something very powerful to show Israel how much the world is really out there and willing to get in the streets and act against what's happening, along with all these other important initiatives. And there may be some other really important ideas, but I think doing them concurrently across movements, as was mentioned by Leo, would be very effective.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine, for that idea and another call to action potentially on November 24th for all of us to look for an action around Israeli consulates and trying to continue to bring pressure to send on this. Any other comments? I see several things going on in the chat with other links and documents. I see Moji Aga. Please go ahead. You have the microphone.
Hi, salam alaikum to my brothers and sisters in Palestine. This is Moji Mujtaba Agha Mohammadi, Moji Agha in Colorado, US. And your heroic struggle is a lesson in nonviolence to all humanity, and a very important way of trying to undemonize our part of the world. I am from Iran. I am the founder of a recently started project called Peace-Seeking Iranian Veterans. And the comment I have is that in terms of the synergy of the different movements that peace, climate change, human rights, democracy, whatever our good cause, a project that I've been working on for years is now called Chambers of Compassion, which is an equivalent to what corporations have as chambers of commerce. Chambers of compassion or intersectional circles, so that we, as people who are engaged in different
We can't hear you right now, Moji. Please, can you repeat that about the international circles, communities of compassion? It seems like Moji's internet is down. Can you hear me? I think we'll come back to Moji once his internet. And David is if asking Moji, if you send the information, we will share that out to everybody's email. I see T. Baker has your hand up. Please go ahead, take the microphone.
You did. Okay. Should Harris win, become our president, what are the chances of us really influencing a change in U.S. policy through a new president, not Joe Biden? And what can we do to pressure a new Democratic regime?
Thanks for that question. I'm going to ask Colonel Wright if you want to take that on first, since you talked a lot, and then maybe David, if you want to answer that.
Sure. Well, no matter who wins, we've got to, continue the pressure on it. Right now, we know that the Democratic leadership, the Democratic administration with Biden-Harris has been, totally supportive of the state of Israel. And so far, other than saying the word ceasefire and saying we have to have compassion for the civilians that are being harmed, but at the same time continuing the flow of weapons to Israel, that's all we have from Harris. So we've got to continue. If she wins, then we've got to continue the push to say, stop these weapons going to Israel. And it's going to be an uphill battle. And unless we get more people in the Congress that will support an end to weapon sales, then
Oh, I think we just lost Colonel Wright. David, did you want to add anything to that call to action for the U.S.?
Well, the only good thing that ever comes out of a U.S. election is that the damn election is over, and now people can get back to other things, including strategic nonviolent actions that have always changed the world far more dramatically than elections, and to use them in the U.S., among other things, to demand the sort of reform that would allow decent elections, but also to demand the immediate cessation of arms shipments to Israel. And this means a rebirth and expansion of campus activism. It means an expansion of strategic divestment and education campaigns that are underway. It means all of these weeks and days of action that are planned for after the election. So idiotically, they ought to have been before an election, but given the way the world is, after the election, there are days and weeks of actions being planned. They need to be huge, and they need to include nonviolent resistance to the way things are in Washington, D.C. immediately, with no honeymoon, with no let's give him a chance or let's give her a chance, as the case might be. But the immediate, we're done being distracted and drained of all resources and energy by a broken electoral system, and we want action now. And that means the resolution from Senator Sanders in the Senate has to be passed, but it also has to be pushed for in the House, and for immediate compliance with the law, no additional resolution needed from the U.S. State Department. So more the better, and the chances are better the more we do it. Thanks to everybody who's helping.
Thanks, David. And certainly that is the purpose behind this conference and the Global Solidarity for Peace in Palestine partnership. And we invite everybody to continue to join us as we try to organize and mobilize globally to put pressure to end this. So thank you, David, for those comments, and Colonel Wright also. Kathy, somebody says you had your hand up, so please go ahead.
Oh, forgive me. I just wanted to put my thumbs up. No, thank you.
That's what I thought. Okay, thanks, Kathy. I see Beatrice has your hand up. Parwataker, please go ahead, Beatrice.
I was just going to say, if Harris comes in to win by some miracle, you have to remember there is a coalition in place that backs the Palestinians, and that is Black women. And their organizations are strong on that. That was the problem, that everyone was afraid that Black women were going to take up against her and that thing because of the fact that she would go against Palestine. But I will say that when that happens, it's going to be all, if she wins, they're going to be there strong, because this is a coalition that for years has backed Palestine.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. That's a very hopeful sign that other groups, that, and especially Black women, continue to organize and are prepared to push back should Kamala Harris win. I see Reverend Fahid will take one or two more questions. Reverend?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have the microphone.
I want to say special thanks to you and to this conference. I am the child of the first Nakba, and we call now what is happening in Gaza the second Nakba. And the situation is going to get worse. We need this war to stop. We need a permanent ceasefire. The more we educate the American people, the more we succeed. The ball is in our hand in the USA. The whole world can say with the United Nations to Israel, stop. But as long as the US giving money and arms, Israel is not going to stop. And I like Gideon Levy from Haaretz, who said, you know, if you have a brother who's drunk and you continue giving him money, he loves you. But if you say, I want you to go for rehab, he will hate your guts. And he said, you American people, if you love Israel, you need to say to Israel, stop, because Israel is destroying itself by the power of the US behind it. So the question, the issue right now, how we in grassroots America, in the church, in the civic community, we need to show the suffering of the Palestinian people for the last 75 years. I mean, when I say to people from 1948 to 1966, when I came for my education in the US, I couldn't leave my village in Galilee without going to the Israeli military governor and get a permit. I mean, Israel created 63 laws to control our lives. And right now, we need to show to people, if you're in Bethlehem, you cannot go to Jerusalem or to Jericho without a permit. So you're a 56-year-old woman and a man, know nothing but occupation. We need to go after small stories to galvanize the American people to say the suffering of the Palestinian people. And I want to salute the Palestinian women because without women, we will never survive 75 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is an excellent spot to bring this to a close. And in the words of Raji Surani, we will never, never give up our support for justice and dignity and freedom and the right to self-determination for the Palestinian people. I would like to, before we end, and I turn it over again to Miguel Alvarez to thank, I would just like to thank our interpreters who have done a fantastic job of translating this. They do this on a volunteer basis, so we really want to thank them. A special thanks to David Swanson for organizing this and getting all of this to work online and organizing the Zoom call and collecting all of the emails. I would also like to thank World Beyond War for hosting this in general. And just to let everybody know, we will be sending out everybody who registered by email a recorded video plus any other information that was part of this seminar. So thank you all so much for participating. And I want to turn it over now to Miguel for our closing words. This will be in Spanish, so please put on your final interpretation from Spanish to English or Spanish to Arabic. Thank you. Miguel?
Pues hermanas y hermanos, yo creo que hoy podemos decir que volvimos, ratificamos, fortalecimos tres consensos. Uno, que nosotras y nosotros sí reconocemos al pueblo palestino como pueblo, con su historia, su cultura, su territorio y su dignidad. Segundo, que reconocemos y hacemos propio su dolor y desde ahí nos sumamos a este esfuerzo, a esta necesidad mostrada por las mujeres y los niños de Palestina de hacer lo que podamos a corto plazo por detener esta guerra. Y tercer consenso, que estamos ante la crisis de la institucionalidad mundial, que en la correlación de la Segunda Guerra Mundial sigue funcionando y que ya no responde a las nuevas condiciones de justicia y de paz. Sobre estos tres consensos, hoy estamos tomando dos acuerdos que nos hacen corresponsables de que los podamos cumplir. Uno, el poder multiplicar esta campaña a través de la página que podemos firmar. Vimos qué fácil es, pero para que ahora multipliquemos, distribuyamos esa campaña de manera que demostremos esa palabra que aquí se usó, porque hay que demostrar la voluntad, la fuerza, la opinión de nosotros como sujetos, no solo como peticionarios. Entonces, hoy empezamos campaña en todos nuestros países. Un segundo acuerdo es, además de esa campaña, tenemos un documento propositivo que, enmarcado en la resolución 377, tiene como vértice el animar a la Asamblea General de la ONU a que tome una determinación por encima de la capacidad de veto de Estados Unidos en el Consejo de Seguridad. Y hoy tenemos la tarea conjunta de firmar, de llevar ese pronunciamiento a los demás espacios, redes que conocemos, movimientos, etc. Son dos tareas muy concretas. Y termino diciendo que seguramente nos convocaremos en 1 o en 2 semanas. Mañana se reúne el espacio de coordinación de esta coalición, de este movimiento, y habremos de ver, según cómo vayan las campañas y los documentos, cuándo nos volvemos a reunir, cómo vamos a hacer llegar estos documentos y estas firmas, pero mientras esto sucede, hay tal vez otra tarea que quisiéramos todos compartiéramos, y es seguir creciendo. No pretendemos una unidad orgánica, sino una unidad estratégica. Hoy está claro que a los de Estados Unidos, a las hermanas y hermanos de Estados Unidos, les toca una tarea estratégica, que es la de articularse para presionar a su Congreso y a su gobierno. Todo lo que generen en esa línea, bienvenido. Todo lo que se genere en la Gran Bretaña, en Francia, en Europa, pero sobre todo en el sur global, hoy es necesario. Por eso hoy también acordemos nuestra creatividad, nuestra capacidad de llevar a los que conocemos estas ideas, porque mientras más crezcamos, más pesaremos y más podremos responder a este grito de esperanza, que aquí con la participación de la gran articulación palestina que ellos han logrado, se convierten en nuestro interlocutor al cual respondemos en estas tareas de esperanza. Ha sido una reunión muy fructífera, muy profunda, pero hoy abrimos la acción. Estas llamadas a la acción hoy hacen que pasemos a otra fase, a otra etapa que nos corresponde a todas y todos. Un abrazo.
Great. Thank you very much, Miguel. And a final thank you to our speakers today, Mr. Surani, Colonel Wright, and Ms. Siam, for your integrity, your commitment, and for sharing with us today such a moving testimony that continues to call us into action. And thank you all for joining us today. We will continue to be in contact. The time to act is now. Thank you so much for participating.